What's up, everybody? Today we are going to have some fun with guitar strings. So we are still in Central Tennessee, working on some stuff, and I was just thinking, it's a video that I guess maybe I've seen other people do it, but I've never actually done this myself. So I've got a Strat here, and I've got some acoustic guitar strings. And actually, at the little dinky local guitar shop here, I found a set of 10 to 46 acoustic guitar strings. So let's put them on this Strat. We'll play them through the Marshall, and we'll see what it sounds like. And then we will discuss the effects of guitar strings that are not supposed to be on this guitar. Of course, I guess we should just strum a few chords and play it a little bit beforehand so we can get a little bit of before and after. So one of the things I'm kind of curious about is, well, without giving too much away of what I think and etc., just listen to how even the tone is from the strings. Normal electric strings, they're just Ernie Ball 10s. Gives us an idea. Let's go ahead and put some acoustic strings on it and see what happens. Alright, these strings are called Play On Acoustic, so I'm sure they are not the most amazing guitar strings ever, but I guess it doesn't quite matter, really, because we're going to have them on here for about however many minutes, and then they're just going to go away, so... It's got a wound third, so that's going to be interesting. Okay, so we have acoustic strings on our electric guitar. So now there's a couple of things we want to take note of here when we do this sort of experiment. So when we change diameters of strings, it's going to change the intonation on the guitar because, well, intonation is basically scale length on the high E and then adjusted for the diameters of each strings to compensate as the strings get thicker. So when you change the thickness of strings, it changes the length necessary from the 12th fret to the saddle for it to equal the 12th fret to the nut based on the thickness of the string. So that's going to be a thing. So especially on our G string, because this one has winding on it, it's going to throw that off a little bit. I am not going to reset up the guitar just for this experiment. So if the intonation is off just a little bit, just know that. The other thing is the string tension is probably going to be different. I don't know though, we'll see. It's the same gauges of strings, but the string tension is probably going to be a little bit different, and we'll get into why in a few minutes. And this is a tremolo guitar. Hopefully, I don't have to mess with that to just get the guitar playable. So let's go try to tune this thing up and play it. Okay, so that was a pretty interesting experiment. Let's talk about what we found. I don't know how much difference you heard. Obviously, the strings sounded differently from the electric to the acoustic, but were there any technical differences that make this undesirable? Like, is this something you would want to do on purpose? Well, okay. There's a few things here. One is, it may have sounded relatively similar in output when you're listening to it, but when you look like on the meters while I'm editing the video, I actually went and looked at the footage because I strummed the chord and I was like, wow, that's actually more there than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot weaker than that. But then when I went and looked at the footage, it was about 5 dB down on the electric strings, meaning the electric strings were a lot more powerful, okay? Not only were they a lot more powerful, but when you strummed one of them harder, you got a lot more voltage, meaning you got a lot more output, meaning it like spiked the meter. I mean, you can get a lot more out of an electric string. Well, why is that the case? Because the winding of the acoustic string is not magnetic. Only the core of the acoustic string is magnetic. And of course, as we know, when we have this magnetic field that exists over the pickup and that string moves within that magnetic field, a voltage is created. That is the elementary, easy way to explain it. Since this string only has part of its mass that is magnetic, it is not going to create as much inductance in the pickup, therefore it's not going to create as much voltage, therefore it's not going to create as much output, so it's not going to be as loud. And you're thinking, well, but the E string was still louder than the A string, was still louder than the D string, was still louder than the G string. Yes, because the cores of these strings are bigger from string to string. So if you look at the core of the low E, it's bigger than the core of the G string, for example. So there is a graduation of core size as it comes up. So it's still going to sound kind of balanced, but it's just not going to be there like an electric string would, because the entire electric string is magnetic, where only a portion of this is. Very, very interesting. So this is why an acoustic guitar pickup most of the time is different from an electric guitar pickup. Now, there are magnetic acoustic pickups. There are. But they've got to be done right to work, to compensate for this. So very interesting. The other thing that comes into play when you're changing from acoustic strings or electric strings to acoustic strings is the actual tension. Of course, the scale length doesn't change, nothing changes, but when the string is a different tension, it's just like changing string gauges, like going from a 12 to a 10 or a 10 to a 14, kind of extreme. So here, I'm going to show you what the gauges of the electric set that were on here. The electric set was 10, 13, 17, 26, 36, 46, or 48. The acoustic strings were 10, 14, 23, 30, 39, 47. So there's a couple things that happen here. One is, obviously, on a tremolo guitar, it pulls on the tremolo a little bit different. I actually found it didn't change it a whole lot. It did pull on it a little bit more, but I was able to get away with it. The other thing that happens is because the thickness of the G string, the external thickness of the G string is different because it's wound, and the intonation is going to be off a little bit, as well as the other strings are going to be off a little bit too, because the external thickness of them is just a little bit different. So, is this something that you want to do? Probably not. It's probably not, and they do feel different. They're all kind of slinky or weird feeling because one of the main things that, and I learned this from Scott at Stringjoy when we toured Stringjoy, was that the ratio of the center core of the string to the winding. So you could have a really big center core and a small outside winding and still get the same gauge, or vice versa. You could have a smaller center core gauge and a bigger winding and still have the same external gauge, and it would change the feel of the string. Of course, these feel differently than the electric strings that were on here because those ratios are all different. So again, it's not something you probably want to do. I wouldn't say it's a desirable thing to do, but it's a fun experiment to understand the differences and then take those same concepts and understand why your guitar changes when you change string gauges, when you change string brands, because not every brand is going to have the same core to winding ratio. So that's where they kind of make changes and mess around with stuff. As well as the tension, so it'll mess with your tremolo, it'll mess with the way it feels. So these same concepts, and intonation, of course, all these same concepts, even though this is more extreme than we want, will also apply when you're just changing brands. And you might wonder, well, when I go from this brand to this brand, how come I have to adjust my intonation? Why does it feel different? Why does it sound a little different? Because all those same things happen, not quite at the extreme that we saw here, just even changing brands. Pretty cool. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Kind of a fun little experiment. Thanks for hanging out. Make sure you check out our videos on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. I appreciate everybody that watches. Make sure you subscribe and like and share. Hit the little bell so you know the next time we have a new video that comes out. And, oh yeah, Patreon, the little join button down there, all the things. You know what to do. You watch YouTube a lot. We'll see you in the next video.